Hey, welcome to another week of Radio Melee. By the way, going to be our last week for a couple weeks. We're taking a break after this until season 4. It is season 3 right now of Golden Guardians Melee content, but we have a very special guest on, someone who's been making waves, someone who got, this is my narrative, I'm sticking to it, someone who got Peach trending with 43,000. You see that little
I'll
tweet?
take credit for that. I will take credit for that.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the context was, but I saw it after you beat Leffen, so that's what I am going to assume all those people were talking about. That's right. We have, I don't know, is it safe to say someone who's top 5, top 10 right now, which is insane because you're a doctor? It's lloD. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you, man. You've been making a lot of moves. I mean, I think, you know, the narrative so much, if we're talking about rising players, I think so many people are talking about Jmook, but if there's someone that's being talked about almost just as much or maybe even just as much, especially after last weekend, I think it's got to be you, lloD. So I mean, it's wonderful to have you on. You've been putting in a ton of work, very smart play. And so we've got things to ask you. We got things other people I'm sure want to ask you. So, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Been a pretty good year for me so far. Never saw this coming.
Did you? I almost want to ask you, because it's like, how do I put this? I mean, I don't know. I have to assume most of your conscious effort, at least, like you're are you in your residency or you're done with your residency? You're like fully working now.
Yeah, so I'll be graduating med school in about 2 weeks. So not an official doctor yet, but
congrats.
Once I graduate officially, doctor title, and then I'll be starting residency in July. So this is kind of like that transition zone towards the end of med school. That's a big reason why I've had a lot of time recently, because after audition rotations and interview season and then residency acceptance, there's like a 3-4 month period where we're just kind of coasting. Senioritis, if you'll call it that.
Yeah. Now, when that's done, are you gonna not really have much time again? Because I was seeing some discussion about that on Reddit, saying there's this thin window of time for lloD to get these results, and then after that, he's not gonna have any time, or how overblown is that, or how true is that?
I honestly can't really tell at this point. I will have vacation days to take off, which I will almost for sure entirely be using for Smash tournaments. So hoping for at least like a national every month or two. I definitely want to go to summits in the future. East Coast, things that are driving distance can totally do, especially if they're weekend events. Like if something starts on a Saturday, if there's like a singles tournament that starts on a Saturday, I could definitely go there and come back in time.
Makes sense.
So hopefully I still keep this momentum strong going forward.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people want to see you continue this success, and I think this has to be the question right now, outside of are we going to keep seeing you do this, is what's contributed? Because you were saying you were surprised by the year, but I mean, I think there's a lot of factors to talk about, right? I mean, what do you think are, and I'm going to list out some factors, you tell me how true they are. Is it how rare Peach was for a long time, how much innovation there's been for Peach, or how much you personally innovated and learned yourself? Is it your own effort and approach to the game that's different? Is it Zane practice? What do you think among all of these things? How much do you think any of them plays a role? Is it all of it? Is there something I missed? What are you thinking that most contributes to your success here? Because it's really remarkable.
I think it was kind of like the stars aligning, where timeline-wise, a lot of good things happened for me all at once. Like the new unranked, that's like MMR based matchmaking was huge for me, because I'm not the kind of person to like seek out specific people to practice for like 5 hours straight. I'm someone who only has bits and pieces of time, and the old unranked was pretty boring for me. But this new one, where it's like any moment you can just match up with someone who gives you amazing practice, and then if I have to leave, I can just leave. That was like a huge factor in my improvement, I think. Another big thing, like I was talking about, how as soon as I was accepted for residency, I just had a lot of time available to actually play unranked. Third reason, I switched control grip recently to Z jump, which I think that switch happened like in the middle of my upswing of skill, so it isn't like the sole reason. I think it just helped a lot with consistency for controlling my character.
Easier.
Yeah, it lets me do like hyperfloat up airs like incredibly easy now.
And you were like clawing before, or what were you doing?
I used to do the worst way to do hyper float up air. Would have to press up down like for a single up air, which is insane.
Man
I
was
don't know
putting
why
in
I
the
did that.
Konami code.
It was
you used A.
ridiculous.
You used the A button.
I used up and A. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't ask me why, but I would do up and then I would do up Y down and then up A down.
Jeez. Yeah,
So,
I'm just envisioning that. That's a busy left hand.
With drift, you also had to go like left and right, so it was actually ridiculously hard to do. But with claw or with Z jump, either way, it's just a lot easier. And then the last thing that actually might have been the most important thing. So I recently switched colors to white peach in celebration of becoming a doctor, because it's as if she's putting on her white coat. But that like shakeup allowed me to completely reinvent my playstyle. I originally was going to plan out, if you guys remember, Leo was like my unranked Smurf account. I originally did that just to test out how it would feel to play as White Peach.
So that's what the Leo name tag is?
Yeah, I noticed that at Summit.
That was a confidence boost, because
it has nothing to do. There's no Leo person, this is not a shout out. This is you shouting out yourself, basically.
Shouting out myself, yeah. Shouting out my Smurf, really, because
nice.
when I played as Leo, like I felt like I lost all my old habits, like everything that was pulling me back towards like the old lloD play style.
Wow.
And instead I felt free to experiment with new styles, with new options, and I had really good results as Leo. And I think part of it was the lack of pressure. Part of it was that I was just trying all these new things that I never thought I'd be able to do in the past.
And
so
really reinvented yourself. Wow, man.
Reinvented myself completely. And that's why, like, it was funny. Literally no one knew that Leo was me, just because they were like, oh, they don't play like lloD at all. They thought it was Polish. They thought it was Sir Maris. They thought it was Vans. Literally all these other Peach players, except for me, just because the playstyle was so drastic. Wow. But really, that was me just trying new things. And so after going through that whole experiment of playing new styles, stealing ideas from the other top Peaches and trying to incorporate them into my play, all of a sudden, now I don't feel like I'm just representing lloD's playstyle. I feel like I can represent literally everyone else too.
Wow. That's cool. Kind of noticed, and I don't know what the timeline for all this is, but I kind of noticed, like, when I watched your matches and I was commentating you at Smash World Tour, I guess it would have been, like, couple months ago, honestly. It wasn't that long ago. I felt like you played a lot more grounded. Like, I felt like you played, pretty significantly different from how you kind of were playing at Summit. And that's you're saying that's not my imagination.
Not your imagination at all. After Smash World Tour is when I started making these changes. Because in the past, 20 years, I've primarily been a grounded Peach. I love dash dancing, I love run-up shield, and I love playing out-of-shield games. But over the past few months, I've tried to incorporate, like floating in neutral, which to the past me, that was like not even an option. I never understood why that was good, what you could do out of it. I really missed being able to shield, but now I can do it pretty seamlessly in my game plan. That's made a huge difference.
I love the color aspect of all this. I think it's so interesting how many people in the Smash community have little personal anecdotes about, like, I played this color or whatever, and it changes how I play. It changes how I think. Because I actually feel like that's really common.
It wasn't common at one point, I'll tell you that.
There was a point where everyone kind of played. Yeah, people weren't super duper as known for color. Well, I mean, Ken was always red, etc. But
I more so that not everyone believed that the color you played had much of an impact on.
No one. Yeah, I mean, you can still say that it's like not. Yeah, that's true. But there are people that are always gonna dissent. But I feel like it's cool that more people seem to have those anecdotes these days.
Yeah, right. For Peach in particular, for Peach, like, the color means everything. It's really funny. I don't know what it is, but you can really tell someone's play style based on the color they pick, at least these days.
Okay. Can you run through some of the examples for that? Like, what is the green Peach, for example?
So green Peach is very technical, very fast, and burst movement.
Okay.
Blue Peach is a lot of mid-height floats, a lot of back airs, a lot of platforms. Pink Peach is a lot of full hop up airs and, like, destroy them if you get a hit. White Peach is actually the one that's up in the air, and that's why I like White Peach because it feels like a mix of everything. And then Daisy is just you pick out all the wrong options.
You messed up from the start, huh? Yeah, Daisy very polarizing. I have noticed.
I've noticed Daisy a very polarizing figure in the Peach community.
Wait,
so is Triff kind of because Triff is green, right? So Triff kind of exhibits those green Peach tendencies.
Very fast, very burst movement. Triff and I actually do play pretty dissimilarly. I play a lot of ground stuff. Triff plays in the air a lot. But I think we still run with the similar concepts, like similar game plans, or I guess similar goals, different ways to accomplish it.
Wow.
Very different from blue, very different from pink, and especially different from Daisy.
Especially different from Daisy. Yeah, that's something I keep. That seems to be a common theme. Something else I wanted to ask you is just like, I think for a lot of people, right? Listen, we get a lot of, not even us here on Radio Melee, but just like, I think in general, there's kind of people, you know what I mean? There's this concept about like, to really reach the top in Super Smash Brothers Melee, you have to be doing it full time. You know what I mean? I feel like that's
a lot of talk about that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this was a question I was certainly thinking about asking lloD, and I think, this is something that we actually kind of talked about with Polish a little bit. What is the work-life balance? Can you be, Dr. lloD, orthopedic surgeon, and all this good stuff, and then you clock out just to clock back in, clock some heads in Melee. And so what are you thinking about all that, lloD?
I know you get bars like that, PP.
I feel like I'm a weird case just because I have played this game forever, right? It isn't like I started a few years ago like a lot of my competitors these days have. My first tournament was like 17 years ago, so I'm by no means like brand new.
Right.
I think I've just been slowly improving throughout the past 17 years. I guess I can't really say that. I think as soon as I figured out a good way to improve, that's when I started slowly improving, steadily improving. I don't really hit plateaus. And a big reason is because I never really cram for this game. I feel like I'm just always learning and always improving. I think about the game a lot, even when I'm like at school, at work,
doing
whatever
surgery,
it ends up being.
Still thinking about hyperfloat.
Still thinking about hyperfloats. I think I just kind of like tack on a little bit at a time when it comes to like improving my game plans, learning new percents, learning new interactions, new combos. A lot of it, I think, is just the way that I've approached improvement in general. But yeah, I never really feel like I have to put in like 12 hours a day to maintain my tech skill or to maintain my game plans. And even then, I feel like I'm good enough to adjust my game plans based on how my tech skill is doing in any given day. I don't need to be playing at a 10 out of 10 tech skill wise to beat people better than me, because I can just adjust my game plan to account for that.
Well, there also aren't too many people that can be ranked above you at this point, lloD. I think you've also just beaten most of them anyway.
It's really weird. We always used to think that like Peach would never reach top 15, top 10, unless you picked up a secondary for either specific matchups or specific people, because Armada gave up on it.
Right.
I think more so specific people he gave up his Peach against.
Yeah.
But definitely matchups play a role in it too. So it's kind of crazy. Like I never thought that I would reach the like tier of players where number one spot actually seemed like attainable. My last ranking was like 25th or something, and I always thought there were like several tiers ahead of me before I could even dream of beating like the top 3. But like I just beat Zane, I beat Mango a few weeks ago, I beat Hungrybox and Leffen, and like all 4 of those, it's like
those are
Peach,
the best players.
Yeah, like it is. First of all, like a ranked 25th player beat all 4 of those people, but with Peach, like a character that they've all historically just destroyed, it's crazy.
You know what I think is really cool about your rise too is that it seems like your what's the word, like dominance or prevalence in the last few months, really you owe a lot to like techniques, and I think that is really cool because I feel like for a long time it was just like, oh, get better fundamentals, like, Peach isn't actually like that technical or whatever, like, And I feel like, or even just for other characters, like in the sense of other characters, I feel like it's very rare that like maybe like I'm thinking of someone like Wizzy with like reaction tech chasing with Falcon or something. Very rare that people start implementing at the top level. People start implementing like small specific techniques, but that actually is what pushes them, like you said, across all those tiers, right? I feel like that's not that common these days.
Yeah, thinking back how like Armada played, it seemed like Armada was really good at establishing his tools and then finding uses for them. But I very much don't play like that. My approach is kind of in response to what I think my opponent can do. I kind of imagine what options they have. And I think like if I know that they're going to do this at the exact moment I think they're going to do it, what can I do to directly beat that? And so that's where a lot of this innovation comes in. Armada would probably just dissuade them from doing that. But I would rather just beat them at like playing their own game. And so that's kind of how a lot of these Peach options have been like increasing exponentially over the past few years. We think about all these moves that have given Peach trouble in the past that like Armada would again dissuade them from doing it, put himself in positions where it wasn't possible, but like I will find a way to like sneak under it or to punish it out of shield or to come at it from above. Just like I guess knowledge of Peach in general, her hitboxes, the way her opponent's hitboxes work, how they interact with each other, find specific ways to win those interactions, and then start implementing.
Yeah, I will say, like, even for me, like when I played you in friendlies at Summit, I was very discombobulated at first. It felt very different than playing. I mean, you know, I've played like let's say Triff, for example, right? And I was like, whoa, this feels like really weird. And kind of it definitely felt like, okay, there is a lot of stuff here that if you like I was kind of low-key not that surprised by the left result at all. In the sense that like if you're coming at that sort of match with the expectation that's like, okay, I know what to do in this matchup. I'm going to stick to my usual game plan. I'm going to play at the spacings I usually play at. I'm going to look for these moves, right? I was like, it's going to be different. lloD right now is a very kind of strange player if you've never played him before. Is how I felt. So
yeah, I overheard Leopard
and then it came true.
Yeah, I overheard Leopard saying afterwards that like I didn't really do anything new in the matchup, but
that's
I watched I watched over the set, and there was literally a moment where I did like 4 approaching hyperfloat up airs in a row. I'm like,
I remember that.
Name one set that this has ever happened before. Like, I just thought that comment was really funny. My matchup spread has actually been pretty weird in the past. I used to be awful against Fox, awful against Falcon, awful against Falco. And a lot of my newer development in the past few months, stealing things from like Polish, Triff, Keizu, has helped me a lot in those matchups. But my default game plan, I think, will always be like play on the ground, do quick burst movements, either in response to the opponent or calling them fading back. And so I don't think those kinds of things most people are ready for just because they've never really seen it that much.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's like the best strategy, but it is weird. It's weird to play against a Peach that does that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
really
not
weird.
only that, but you're often just outplaying them. I mean, you said, well, if they do this thing, and they do it exactly the way that I expect them to do it, what can I do about it, right? If you already know what someone wants to do and when they want to do it and how they want to do it, I mean, you're basically, you're like
what else can you ask for?
80% of the way there to outplaying them, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I think some of what Peach is going to need. So, yeah, I mean, to be able to do that with any consistency, I think is also just a testament to you, the player, and I'm sure Peach helps with that some and your own unique stuff, but that's a you thing that we were kind of talking before the show that, regardless of what anyone knows about hyperfloats, they're not going to be able to take away from you.
I think that's just part of the way I approach the game. It's very much like counter hit, counter play heavy. I would much rather outplay my opponent than oppress them with my own play style, if that makes sense. Like I'd rather counter their strategies rather than force mine on them. And that's just always the way that I've approached competitive games in general. I think it's a lot more fun and a lot more resonant with just me as a person when it comes to these competitive games. And so I think that's a big reason why my style looks so weird, because I'm not going to float there threateningly trying to land a forward air. Instead, I'm going to like call you out going for like a weirdo drift drill and then like power shield down smash it, just because I think that's much more attuned with my skills as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean I think it's fascinating to get this perspective because I think it's the way a lot of people aren't looking at the game right now. So I'm kind of just glad we have this, almost more of like a fighting game type perspective here. But let me go ahead and transition us a little bit to community voice. But before we
That's
do
right.
that, I'm going to ask production to just get a little crazy with these words on the screen here. Exclamation Radio Melee and my chat or Toph's chat. If you guys want to ask some questions to lloD, I mean, as you can tell, he thinks a lot. He's gonna be a heckin' surgeon, doctor, powerful man, and he's gonna play Melee. If you want to ask him about work-life balance, if you want to ask him about Peach, you want to ask him about anything else that all that entails, please, exclamation Radio Melee, join the Discord server, submit topics here, and do what everyone else is doing, go from there. Well, with that being said, I think we can go ahead and get into the community voice. Thank you so much, Q, from last time when we had Ryobeat and Aklo on, and the question was, which Smasher would best survive on a deserted island and why? We'll get lloD's take in a minute, but we've got some responses on screen now.
True that. Here's the thing. Before I even read the rest of this response, Chudat is willing to eat things that most Smashers aren't willing to eat.
This is true.
Which to me is
Oh,
very
God.
valuable on a deserted island.
That's what King said. King RO98 said under that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has found a way to survive as a top player in this metagame for so long. Yeah, and is incredibly clutch in high pressure situations like his setting against Hogs. I think this resilience would translate well into the real world. He has the positive energy to survive and would make friends with monkeys and teach monkeys. Yeah, that's true. He would teach monkeys how to
What a
yaze.
terrifying island you would roll up on.
I would leave him. I wouldn't even take him home. I'd be like, you know what? You got your monkeys. You've got your onions.
Oh,
You're fine,
no.
I think.
Yeah, I didn't realize the chaotic chew energy. Yeah, this is such a good point. This is terrifying.
Yeah, it really
to
is.
think about. Yeah, I think the Chew Island will eventually overtake other civilizations. Actually, so we need to prevent this from happening.
You want to read the next one?
Yeah, I'll take the next one. So James says, just based on the public persona, none. Good answer. He seems like he'd be totally unfazed, but he's stuck on an island. You're probably right. Like you'd rescue him, and he'd be like, "Don't rush me. I have to finish fertilizing my weird vegetable garden." After seeing the Nun documentary, he also just strikes me as a very competent guy who does what needs to be done. Not to mention that he'd have his favorite neighbors to keep him company if he loses his mind. Yeah, wouldn't that be a fun conversation?
Yeah, it's like instead of Wilson, you've seen Castaway.
Yeah.
So instead of Wilson, it's like he just goes crazy and starts talking to Bond.
I can imagine that's good conversation, but I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's better than nothing. You know,
Well,
you got Wizzy fan.
He put shades on one of the monkeys. It's just all back to the monkeys every time.
Oh god,
one of the monkeys is Bond.
Yeah, one of the monkeys is Bond. We got a really good answer this week. Sebastian Matto saying, "For me, it's got to be H-Box. He's got the strong mental game to withstand the hardships that come with surviving on a desert island. He'll struggle a bit at first, but after a while, be hunting animals, yelling fucking fuck the first time he fails to catch one, and popping off for every crab he gets for dinner, scaring off predators."
Oh no!
Wow, that's topical, huh, lloD? We filmed that skit at 1 a.m.
Oh god, that skit turned out so well. Oh my god,
really good. Was that that was your first Summit skit, right?
Yeah, first Summit skit.
Cool to be the star at your first.
Oh yeah, got to show off some of my Spanish, my accents.
I got to wear a maid outfit. That was new and
that
unusual.
was powerful.
You were definitely the highlight of the whole thing.
That was powerful.
When you like drop the fork.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that.
Yeah.
I thought Blue's part actually. Blue
did great.
It was so good.
Where he just he's like, it's
my shirt.
I'm like, are you more concerned with dying or what's going on here? But yeah, that was pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty good stuff. All right, I think we're about ready to get our first caller in again for everybody in chat. Yeah, this is our first Radio Melee back since Smash Summit. So anyone who has any questions about Summit, it doesn't have to be directly a question for lloD specifically. We can all answer it, but if you have any questions about anything that's topical, again, it's really easy to hop in with just !Radio Melee. So definitely do that. And it looks like our first caller is going to be Brentos. Welcome, Brentos, the homie. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Houston, Texas.
Very nice, very nice. What's your question for us today, Brentos?
Yeah, so I was analyzing a lot of lloD sets at Summit, and I was wondering, how do you decide when to play the slow game and when to go aggro depending on who you're playing? Is it based more on character, player, or a combination of both?
The biggest determining factor is actually the combination of percents. So what my percent is versus what the other player's percent is, that determines what we're both looking for, which determines how neutral is going to be played, which determines where I have to position. And so that ultimate positioning, I think, is a big part of slow versus fast. Because if I am like in danger of eating a quick mix up that leads into a kill, that's when I run away. But if I have the pressure of doing the same to my opponent, that's when I want to space really close. And so a good example would be versus like Marth, where um, if I have the potential to like land a down tilt at like 100-ish%, that would lead into a kill. That's when I want to get up in his face, spam crouch, spam dash forward, and really threaten his landings. Whereas if I'm at like 150 and he's really looking for like those side Bs, that's when I'd sit back, wave dash back, do a lot of crouch, and then worst case scenario, just like run to the top platform, run to the side platforms, try to bait him out into swinging early so that I can like come down on him with a punish. And so there is a lot of push and pull when it comes to like that slow versus fast game, but ultimately it really depends on like the goals that both players are looking for.
Yeah, and Peach is a character that often trades a lot. So if you're in a scenario where you're both, let's say, high percent, for an example, you can sort of force that issue a little bit more. But if I was remembering how slow the game felt all of a sudden when you were playing Zane one of the times you played him, and you were high percent and he was low percent. How you really really dragged that out. I was kind of thinking about that, and how you really don't want the trade. Then you want a clean opener at that point. So you have to maybe make him overextend a little bit so you can get that or something. And so, yeah, this is something that I think is really true, and you just have to kind of consider the innate characteristics of Peach along with that.
Yeah, it's very character dependent, right? Like PP, I think even for you, this is probably a pretty interesting question. Like, how do you conceptualize this with like Marth, for example?
Yeah, I think I try not to think about this too much because what I find is
Oh, interesting.
This is a top character privilege thing, I think, where if I'm like, oh, I'm high percent, and so I need to play more passively, I think that just forces me to get shut down a lot easier. And so I'm like, oh, well, sometimes they're going to expect me to do that, so I'm going to rush them, or I'm going to do an approaching grab if I think they're going to overshoot or something like that. And I would play around that, which is I think. I don't think Peach has the luxury of thinking that way as often. But yeah, so I try not to play this way as much as possible if I can. Granted, I think, I'll pay more attention to what my opponent's doing. If my opponent wants to play a slow game, then I don't want to overextend. I don't want to overforce it. And so that's more of what I'm thinking about. And if they're trying to play a fast game then I might say, okay, well, what if I wave dash back a little more? What if I try spamming crouch a little more? Will they slow down? Do they hate that? Do they force the issue anyway? Then I'm going to keep doing it, right? So I'll pay more attention to my opponent, and I'll try to disregard that on my own. And if they are paying more attention to me, I'll see if I can play off their expectations a little more.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
My sinuses are still shot. I stayed in the room with Hugo, and Hugo likes the AC really cold.
Oh my!
Which I thought I'd be fine with, except I kept waking up and I had dry sinuses, so still getting over that. But I'm not sick. It's just from that. But anyway, yeah, it's funny because I do I feel that. I feel like for Fox it's kind of the same way. It's actually weirdly stage specific, I think, with Fox, right? Like in the sense that, like, let's say
Sure.
Actually, Fox Peach is a good example on FD because, for example, at 0 there's no chain grab, right? If I'm at 0, there's no chain grab. The chain grab kind of starts up at the higher percents. So in some ways, there's actually this weird kind of dynamic where the most dangerous percents to be at are like after you've lost like one neutral interaction. And so I'll kind of think about it like, okay, I might take some calculated risks if I'm literally at 0. because I can kind of afford to play with that. On the flip side, if I lose neutral, if I get grabbed at like 30, I'm definitely going to get taken to like 100 plus, right? So yeah, there's definitely, I would say, a stage dependent element to it. It probably just ultimately does kind of depend on your character, but also I think some people, there's definitely times when you, I think you do it like based on who you're fighting against, like PP said. But yeah, I'm sure that I really liked lloD's answer. I think that like thinking about it in terms of kind of how your opponent, like, the push and pull with your opponent, I think is really what it comes down to for most people.
And a big part of it in tournament is trying to gauge what your opponent's like mentality is at any given moment. Like the worst feeling is when you're down a stock and your opponent's at really high percent and they're playing just out of reach. That's like your opponent playing slow, right? And so if you feel that pressure, that means them playing slow is working on you. And so like you can kind of flip it if you ever have that opportunity too. Like you want to apply that mental pressure on your opponent of like, they feel pressure that they have to do something. Let me take advantage of that. Or, I guess you could try mixing it up and like playing aggressive to throw them off as soon as they start to overcommit from your slow game, and that's your chance to go in. Though that kind of thinking, I feel like that's not really like the priority when it comes to learning to make these decisions. I feel like priority is still just about playing the game, playing your characters, playing the percents, and that kind of thinking comes like afterwards. But definitely still applies, especially in tournament.
There's this theory I have about I totally agree with that. There's this theory I have about like that specific situation where like let's say you take the first stock and now you're at 100, your opponent's at 0, but they have 3 stocks left and you have 4 stocks. Like I think there's some matchups where like kind of like playing that situation well is actually extremely important. Like against Marth, I think a lot of characters against Marth, where Marth, if you can inflict, so to say, Marthritis, I think it's really, really good. I think it's really, really good because, and it might not happen every stock of a match, right? Like, let's say a game in tournament which has 4 stocks, obviously. Let's say you only get that 1 stock, but let's say with that 1 stock, you're able to play it to where you just kind of milk that lead and you really pull ahead in the match. Like, that could be the difference maker. I think it actually is the difference maker with that particular matchup more often than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah.
Well, hey, I think we've, covered it pretty well. So thank you so much, Brentos, for calling in. You got any shout outs for us today on your way out?
Yeah. Well, shout out the Last Doc Legends crew. Give me a shout out to Houston Melee Scene and my crew here, Carton Arcs, and a shout out to PG Stats for giving a platform to me to write about Melee.
Hey, very nice. Well,
That's sick.
We'll always love having writers in the scene. I think that's so important. Thank you so much for calling in. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Peace out, Brent. Good to have you on. Yeah, I think that was Brent's first time calling in, but
I think it was. Yeah,
we've definitely worked with him a couple times, right? Like I know Brent was with like Prague and
yeah, I did some Last Stock Legends stuff with him.
Yeah, and Gangly. Shouts to Nick. Yeah, really good people. Talented individuals for sure.
I'm glad we can carve out a space for him in the scene with Last Stock Legends not doing its thing right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like we're ready to take our next caller on. I'm not entirely sure how to say this name. Is it Jabacus?
Oh, Jabocus, yeah.
Jabocus.
Close.
Jabocus.
Jabocus, what's up? Where are you calling in from, and what's your question for us today?
Hey, everything's good. I'm calling in from Long Island.
Nice.
But my question is, what do you think were the most important Summit 13 sets to watch? Because I was slammed with finals last week. And
oh, my.
Yeah, my friend sent me the placements, and he's like, this is going to be a weird year. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on maybe some of the highlight sets for each of you.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Watch a bunch of lloD. Turns out that guy's pretty freaking good. Maybe
That's
even
what I've
watch
heard.
him. Maybe even watch him against Zane. You never know what could happen.
Multiple times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
multiple times. I played a full
Multiple times.
13 sets
That's
that
so
weekend.
many sets.
13.
You looked so gassed in that. I think it
Oh.
was that pleb set at the end, man.
I'm still recovering. It was so much.
Yeah, you said you took the flight after all that, and then you
Yep.
came straight to
And then
work or whatever.
straight to work. Yep.
Holy cow!
Oh man.
What time was your flight?
Midnight.
Oh, red eye.
Red eye. It wasn't even like direct. I was connecting in the middle of the night.
That
Oh,
is really
It was
rough.
miserable.
no.
Yeah, it was awful. So I couldn't even
Yeah.
like sleep through the whole thing. I do
Oh.
want to say my favorite set the whole weekend was Mango versus Jmook. I
That
think
was a good
that
one.
was such an
Mhm.
incredible set. Like, I don't know what it is about Mango's playstyle, but like watching it, you're like, oh wow, he like read that pretty hard. But then if you play him, you're like, oh my god, he just read the ever living crap out of me. And like it's so different to actually play him and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
him read your soul like 16 times in a row. Like it's not even, I don't know how he does it, but every single like shield DI roll, every single wave dash back out of shield, every single option out of shield, he just somehow finds a way to read every single one. And like we saw it happen in front of our eyes starting in like game 3. I guess I don't know if I should be spoiling these if you haven't seen these yet, but like starting in game 3, he just started reading like every single one of Jmook's options, like all of his shield positions, all of his options out of shield. It was crazy. Like the grabs he got, the shield pressure he got, the fact that like he didn't get shield grab like a single time was insane to me. And I think that was also one of the coolest moments for me that entire weekend. I keep bringing this up because I think it was so cool. It was like me and like Cody, Leffen, Zane, like a few other people just all sitting around, just like watching the set and like talking about it as it went on, because we all have such different perspectives about the game.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of like chipped in with like our ideas of like, oh, like, you know, he should have done this there. Or, like, oh my God, that like one jab like completely changed the entire stock. It was very cool. But I think that set for me was the highlight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I liked all of Jmook's game 5
Yes.
sets. Jmook Leffen was insane. Jmook Mango was insane. Fully agreed, by the way, on Mango's, like the way he makes that comeback. It's like, God, it's crazy because, you know, even those games, you know, Jmook goes up 2-0 and it's like, yeah, okay, we're kind of spoiling stuff, but listen, I felt like Mango, like I was watching, I was like, dude, this looks hard. I mean, I know obviously that's a hard matchup on both sides. I think it's hard for both Sheik. It's hard for Sheik and it's hard for Falco. Obviously, like Falco can just die. And obviously for Sheik, well, there's a lot of reasons it's difficult. One of them being that to make the Falco just die, you have to pass this incredibly difficult minigame like 20 times. So it is stressful. It is stressful when you have this like thought in the back of your mind that like, you know, this could be a really, really important, you know, this could be a career defining set, right, for Jmook. And he had many of those over the course of the weekend, and like his composure in those, like I'm just like watching kind of flabbergasted, like, dude, I can't even imagine, like you've never really been in a situation like this before, and his mentality is just so promising to me. It's really, really impressive.
Yes.
And of course his gameplay, I mean, he's just such a treat to watch, obviously.
Yes.
So those were dope. Honestly, this was a trippy summit. This was a really trippy summit. I think it was funny because I noticed people were a lot less like, okay, I should say most people, maybe all people, but at least most people I saw were like way less like lot. I'm wondering if you got the same vibe that I did. I felt like people were less sad and less salty than a lot of the rest of the time, and I felt like it was because so many upsets happened that nobody was alone. You know what I mean? Like sometimes everyone does really, you know, everyone does about as expected, but like, oh, but Mango got died, that he's down in the dubs. But I felt like there was so much bloodshed that like no one's gonna, you know what I meant? Like
I see that. I can see where you're coming from.
So even Mango, he got over it so quickly.
Yeah, he got over it. And like maybe it's just because Mango in particular hasn't had a great season so far. This is like the third event where he's, you know, fallen short of expectations. I'm just thinking like how Zane and Leffen handled it, because this is like, you know, worth performances for them compared to prior events. Yeah, like Zane Zane is afterwards, I think, was his mentality was completely in the garbage because he hasn't had to deal with losing in so long. I don't know about Leffen. All I remember was his like string of salty tweets after he lost to me, but we won't talk about that. But I do think like after we reached like top 8, I would agree that it didn't seem like anyone was salty at all.
Yeah, which was kind of funny. But yeah, to kind of like answer your question, Jabokus, I think there were a lot of upsets that I think all of the upsets were super worth watching. And, I guess your mileage may vary on what you consider to be an upset, but
that's true.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that you just kind of wouldn't expect. I think Plup having his first, I think, really good tournament of the year was cool too. I think there were a lot of really fun Plup sets to watch. Including like Plup Zane. I don't think Plup has really beaten Zane in a while, so that was pretty big. But yeah, I just thought this was a bonkers one for sure. And I just like that it was I don't know, it's crazy. I was telling Brandon the people that I feel the worst for right now in the community are whoever has to do rankings. I would not want to be like a PR panelist right now. It sounds miserable. It sounds really, really miserable. It sounds arguably more difficult than it's ever been. So I don't know.
I was seeing some people doing a couple rankings recently, and people were saying that actually things were lining up about the same among a few different people. So I guess maybe that's heartening. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even close to saying that I could do it. It's just what I've heard. But to throw in a couple other things, I really want to reiterate the JMOOC thing. Boy, am I a JMOOC stan, so I am always down to say it at this point. I mean, I've seen him at 2 big tourneys this year. That's good enough for me. Oh man, I'm not so much. But yeah, I mean, a couple other sets that I was watching some stuff on my stream yesterday. People really pointed out they liked at least the first game of Blue Salt. And I think people also liked
I just processed.
Yeah, you just
yeah, that first game
behind
that first game was hilarious.
It was
hilarious. God, he just made a combo video on him.
Yeah, so there's that, and then there's Mech Salt from I don't know if it was Bulls or Gauntlet. But they were playing to shout out Bab Activated, which was really cool, and they played in a really fun way. So a couple more things to shout out for you there.
I really appreciate it. It's funny because JMOOC wasn't playing that well the first day, and Mech took him to like game 5, right?
Oh yeah.
And I really appreciated getting to see, because you mentioned JMOOC, the full spectrum of that. Not just like him playing really well and taking out these top players, Leffen and Zane, but also that resilience, because he really had to clutch out those sets. Like him versus Mech, I mean, he really did almost lose. He was down. In fact, I think he was down 0-2, which is nutty. And I got to give him props because at the end of the set, he actually did push-ups with Mech. And he did them with better form than Mech does.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
Mech was super straight.
Super straight. Yeah, I was like, nice. Those are good push-ups. So yeah, well, PP, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear we're going to see more of JMOOC. I think he quit his job. He quit his job and he's looking to do some full-time Smash for a little while. So guess we'll see him.
I know his sponsors reached out, and I certainly hope that many do, because people need to sign this man. I mean, it is unreal how good of a pick he is. Yeah. But yeah, boy, am I excited for JMOOC. And lloD. I don't want lloD to feel like I don't care. I've really enjoyed watching you too. You saw the tweet, I hope, lloD. But yeah, I was very much
I did. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
enjoyed your play.
What was your favorite? Maybe it's just Leffen, because it was such a dominant showing, but it's also okay if the answer is not that. What was your favorite set that you played for yourself?
Definitely me versus Zane, actually, the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I haven't beaten Zane since I don't know, 2018 maybe. It's been a long time.
It was before he was the guy.
Yeah, before he was the guy. Yeah,
it was around the time, right? He won Shine in 2018, didn't he? So that had been around then, or was that earlier in the year?
I think there was some random cave where I ended up beating him in 2018. I don't even know.
Nice.
It's funny though, because I used to farm Zane pretty hard back in NDVA during his rise. I actually used to go Sheik against him, and the lloD Sheik was like 20-1 against him record wise. It was actually insane.
Well, you keep that record.
Yeah, so so it was, the past like several years, I haven't really challenged him that much. It might have been the fact that, going back with my old style, like I would just try to beat him at his own game, which is really hard to do against Zane, because he makes everyone play his game, and he's just better at it than everyone. And so for me to try to beat him at his own game is like impossible, especially in such a weird matchup like North versus Peach. And so I think it was one of my favorite sets because I like completely flipped the switch on him and played totally different than I have ever had, literally ever in the past. Like I was doing things that I never imagined myself to do, because like the day before I talked to Rishi about it. He was like, you know what I think you should do? I think you should like float here and like face this direction and do this kind of turnip throw. And it took me a while to like get around to the idea of doing that. But once I started seeing the value of that option and sampling it against Rishi for a little bit, the next day I pulled out against Zane, and like it clearly took him by surprise. This entirely new play style, and ended up working really, really well. So I was very happy about that set because it was a play style that was new to both of us. But I ended up managing to come out on top of it.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome.
That's sick.
Really shows you bringing all that stuff together. So yeah, good thing we didn't spoil any of that for you, Jabokus. But those are some recommendations for sets to watch, and I hope you enjoy it. A lot of great melee there.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably be catching up for the next couple of weeks, but I'm hearing Jmook and lloD and Zane and Plup. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, absolutely is. Thank you so much for calling in, by the way. You got any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Shout out to my friend Mike.
Oh, Mike.
He's
Mike.
my number one
He's a good
rival,
dude.
practice partner.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Love a good melee rivalry.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
You too.
Thank you, Jabokus. Yeah, this was a nutty tournament.
Yes, it was.
And, it was crazy because it was I'm sure there was some of this kind of got detected over the Twitch chat. Obviously it was different if you were there, but it was a weird one because there was the COVID scare.
Yes.
Some people had to drop out.
Yes.
Some commentators even had to drop out. We had to shift the commentary schedule around, right? And in spite of all of that, it ended up kind of working out in a better than I think I expected when we heard about Dark Gen X getting COVID.
Right. Yeah, the
What was
vibes
it, for Friday night.
Yeah, I think everyone was saying the vibes weren't so good very early on, but then as the tournament kind of progressed, things, like you were saying, it's interesting, Toph. Maybe we got the salt vibes, we took the bad vibes, put them earlier, so there was none of that left for later in the bracket when everyone got knocked out and upset.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was it was weird. It was weird Saturday morning, I would say, and lloD, feel free to chime in on this, but I felt like as Sunday went on, there's this funny thing that Melee does where Melee, sometimes the game just kind of carries things.
Oh, for sure.
I felt like that happened in a major way this weekend.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't really talked too much about just in general is that like the VIPs getting sent home, I think really shook things up, since there were so many people in the venue that play such a wide variety of characters that like the people in bracket used to warm up against.
Or like, fix their controllers.
Or fix their controllers, true.
Yeah.
Like B-Bats, who's a Peach player, like would shout out to literally everyone, like, oh, anyone need lloD warm up? Pick me. But he wasn't there. And so, there was no one. Like Zane literally had to warm up against Mango's Peach.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Against Mango's Peach to play against me. And like Homemade Waffles was saying that he was asked by literally everyone that day to warm up against all of his characters. Yeah, like his Falco, his Fox, his Marth, like all of his secondaries were, being used as warm-up practice. And then it was really funny just seeing like half the players just like beating up like a level 1 computer just because there wasn't anyone in the venue. So I don't know if that changed anything. I'm sure a lot of people are used to just playing that matchup for like, 2 hours before they have to play their tournament, but it just wasn't possible a lot of the time. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that actually changed anything.
Deer, the TO of Battle of BC from Gallant Gaming, kept having to warm people up for Puff.
Yeah.
And it's it's so funny. Like, God, I guess it was Saturday morning. Like, the first thing Mango said to me when he saw me was like, Toph, I'm gonna need that Sheik. I was like, no, it's bad. It's all bad. If I have to warm Mango up for Cheek, it's usually a bad sign. But yeah, I mean, things worked out. But that is funny to think about. I mean, we used to talk about it more, honestly. Like back in the HBox, the H God era, where we would talk about, we gotta have Prince Abu at the tournament.
Yeah, did they like buy his VIP pass for him or something?
At one time,
that blows my mind. That's crazy.
Or they had maybe one summit they had coaches and they brought him as a coach.
Just as a coach, yeah.
Off practice, but yeah. So it was wild. It was definitely wild, and a different vibe.
Yeah.
But okay, I think we're ready to bring on our next caller.
Oh boy, welcome back, Twitch is Web.
Twitch is Web. Okay, GGs.
Okay, GGs. Hi.
Hello.
All right, Web. Where are you calling in from? What's your question for us today, gamer?
I'm calling in from Twitch.tv, obviously.
Okay.
My question, primarily for lloD, of course, is what kind of challenges and thought processes are involved in your role as a doctor to be and a competitive Melee player? As in, like, how are the two related for you or different?
I think so. A big part of it is how much energy I have to devote to both pursuits. I don't think anyone has unlimited energy in general, right? We all have a specific amount of fuel in the tank that we can devote towards the different aspects of our life. Fortunately for me, I have like very few, very specific passions that I can just devote all of that energy I do have towards, which in my case is music, as well as medicine, as well as Melee. 3 M's. I was like, hold on. And so
man,
that was a few.
You're doing music too, man. Holy.
Also,
cow.
I saw your chess game with Violence, and I thought you were actually quite good. So.
Oh, thank you. He kind of beat me up thinking back, but it was he's really good. So luckily for me, I have those 3 specific things that I'm totally fine exerting literally 100% of my energy towards. And luckily, they all share a lot of similarities between them. They're all very technical. They all very much use my hands. I play clarinet and a couple other instruments for music, and then obviously Melee is very hand related, and then medicine going into surgery. So they're all very technically demanding. But
and you are training to be a surgeon, right?
Yeah, an orthopedic surgeon. So things like bones, joints, that kind of stuff. And so,
can I ask you real quick if one of the challenges of being a surgeon is someone's gonna show up and they're gonna be like, "Oh, hey, I know you. How you did great at that tournament. I can't wait for you to work on my bones." Is that gonna be any extra pressure? Is that gonna be weird?
Probably, yeah. Especially because actually, I didn't even think about this. Like, I'm hoping to subspecialize in hand surgery, and you just made me realize what happens.
Smashers are gonna seek you out then.
Yeah, what happens?
Hey, you're gonna know how to fix my hands, right?
Fix my hands so I can beat you in the next national.
When the pillow isn't enough for Zane, he seeks out
exactly.
lloD.
He's gonna come to me. I think like my approach to all 3 of those aspects of my life are very similar because they are similar in nature. And so my approach to all of them, I think, is pretty similar. Where, I define my goals, the things I have to do, the ways I have to practice in order to accomplish my goals, and then I just systematically approach those in what I think is the most efficient way. So if anything, like practicing for one helps me practice for the others too, just because they're all very similar.
Oh, so you're saying if you're out here doing surgery, you're like, this helps my hyperflows. That's what you're telling me.
Pretty much.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, and I know the music Melee crossover is one that I've heard really helps people. Really helps with you understanding rhythm and keeping your tech tight and everything like that. So yeah, I can very much. I've heard about how valuable that is. So I imagine if you're feeling burned out on Melee, you want to do something different, but you're off the clock, unfortunately, for work. You can always just do some music. So I always feel like having different outlets and everything going to keep you from being burned out too. So that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and it's always fun to like mix my passions together too. Like I love making Smash themed parodies when it comes to songs. Like one of my favorites was I wrote a song called 80-20 to the tune of Perfect by Ed Sheeran, talking about how
Wow.
awful the Captain Falcon matchup is for Peach. I was like,
Oh, okay. I thought this was going to be a Puff shout out.
oh, not a Puff one. That'll be
that one's
90-10.
90-10.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not quite that bad.
Oh,
But
Well, do you actually believe these numbers?
oh,
by the
no.
way,
Not
okay,
at
I was
all.
just wondering. Where
I
do they
was
come
curious.
from? Are they?
I don't know.
Just
Those
kinda
numbers
from the
don't mean
ether.
anything in the first place, right? No one actually
That's
knows what they
true.
mean.
I think
That's
that
true.
there needs to be a discussion about that, but also, I've wondered because of how much discussion there is on because I'll lurk your Twitter or I'll see some other Peaches Twitter sometimes, and the results are great, but then I think the next day all the Peaches are like, man, we have like 400 awful matchups that are completely miserably unwinnable, and it's
Yeah,
impossible. And so I always thought the dynamic there was interesting. I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I don't
Yeah,
pretend to be a Peach expert,
Oh, yeah,
but I
that's
have to
fine.
say it's an interesting thing.
And we all make fun of ourselves for that too. Like I once made the tweet about how like Peaches don't have the luxury of being bad at their winning matchups just because there are so few of them.
Being bad at their
Okay,
winning matchups.
okay.
Yeah, 'cause,
Well,
like all these foxes are like, oh, I'm so bad at the Peach matchup. I'm like, okay, that's like admittedly a winning matchup for Fox. If I had that privilege to win all my
Right.
matchups but just be bad at them, a lot different from what it currently is.
I will. I will take that and I will raise you Kalamazoo.
Oh, he's a weirdo. None of us understand that. Like he had like the perfect bracket at Genesis, just all foxes, and he did well with it. He ran with it.
Well, I used to go to the Foundry every week, and every week, every single Tuesday, I would see him lose to Diz Kid Boogie and Nintendo. And it just was
makes no
flabbergasting. I mean, it made no sense. I was like, "This is crazy!" Like, what?
Yeah, it's wild. Like if I lost to an Ice Climbers, I would be ridiculed
sad.
so hard. Yeah.
Right. Right.
The Peach protagonist syndrome would become very real, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
We've strayed off the path here a little bit. I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to say about any particular challenges or anything between Doctor and Melee player. Like if you think that maybe you'll get, because you're talking about how much energy you had. If you like surgery will burn you out, which maybe it could. Does that cause any problems for Melee or anything like that?
I kind of covered it. Like when it comes to when they say the steps for becoming a surgeon, like the very first thing you have to do is learn human anatomy. Because if you don't know the structures of the body, how they all relate to each other, where they all are, there's no way you can do surgery. And I think that's extremely similar to both music and Melee. Where with music, you need to learn your instrument, how to make a good sound, all your scales, arpeggios, just like the basics. And only then can you apply it to like playing with other people, to think about intonation, to think about timing, and then to actually perform the music itself. And then same deal with Melee, like you have to learn your character, your combos, your kill percents. Like there's so much data that you have to learn before you can even think about competing. And if you skip those steps, you're going to kill the patient. You're going to not play the matchup well. You're going to flub on your instrument. And so it's all very methodical. And so I think the fact that all three of them are very like skill-based, step-by-step improvement, just similarities across the board, I think it lets me switch back and forth pretty easily.
No, there you have it. I think that's your answer. He says it'll be fine, and it all relates, Twitch's web. So there you go. Thank you so much for calling in. Any shout outs for us on your way out today?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out the three of you, the future Dr. lloD, the past Dr. PP, and I guess the present day maid Toph.
Yeah. Everything's covered here. We've really got we've got everyone represented, which is awesome.
That's right.
Well,
All three of the something.
All the food groups.
Yeah. All of them.
Yeah. All right. Take care, Webb.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Webb.
See you.
Wow. I think that was our last caller of the day.
Yeah, it was.
Man, we got some good.
These are good questions. And
I'm glad we got to talk about even things that that I wanted to talk a lot about.
yeah,
That people didn't even necessarily directly ask, like Kalamazoo and why his matchup spread was so weird.
yeah.
It's so weird. None of us
Yeah.
understand.
Okay,
And
I'm
that's
glad
actually
that we all
yeah, I
agree
think
on
that's
that
like one of the coolest parts about the top Peach players is we all are really good at really different things. It doesn't make any sense because like you would think that like the Armada replacements would all just be worse versions of Armada, but that's the exact opposite. Like none of us play like Armada except for maybe Keizu and like a little bit of Trip, but
Maybe
like
Keizu, yeah.
yeah, but like Polish, completely different. Me,
Completely
completely different. And like it's represented by our matchup spreads too. Like I'm really good against floaties and Marth, whereas Keizu is really good against the fast fallers. Polish is kind of good against everyone except for Falcon, and then Triff is good against anyone, any top player in Europe, just because those are the only matchups he has to play against. But it's really cool because we all play so differently, and our play styles are extremely diverse.
Do you think that used to like that's definitely the case now? Do you think that maybe a couple of years ago that wasn't the case, and maybe a couple of years ago it was more like the thing you said about Armada? Because I feel like as time has gone on, maybe it's just that you guys got better, and therefore by getting better, you kind of see it more. There's more examples of you guys getting to do your respective things. But maybe it was the case a couple of years ago that people tried to emulate Armada a little more. What do you think?
Maybe. I know that Keizu and Triff admit that like they tried to copy Armada like play by play. But like when I think of Polish, and I know they don't like when I make this comparison, but I think they play like blade wise just like much better. Like a completely different branch of Peach, just much better. I don't think that Armada's Peach was the only play style that worked. I think there were many other things you could have done. We just didn't see it that much.
Right.
But now that like all those other branches are getting explored more, they're getting optimized. I think it's totally fair to say that there are many styles of Peach that work. And if anything, a combination of all of them will be the play style of the best Peach.
Yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
I remember when Armada first said he was going to start switching off Peach for matchups. There was a great despair across the Peach land. There was a famine and the crick and the grasshoppers. Everything broke out. It was a very tough time to be a Peach.
The locusts.
The
You're thinking
locusts. Yes, I was
Yeah.
thinking locusts. Apologies,
grasshoppers.
apologies. The grasshoppers did nothing wrong. Apologies, grasshoppers listening.
Uh,
But yeah, it was a tough time, and so I kind of think almost the absence of Armada almost kind of seems like there was no more of that overarching shadow, and people had to kind of find their own way more. And it was very interesting to kind of think about, are there cases like that might even come out now? And I think it's a little different in Peach's case because Armada was such a prominent figure, and it was like this is the way or in everything. But it's something worth thinking about, that it's almost like it took Armada going for maybe some other Peaches to come out, and maybe it would have happened anyway.
Right.
I'm not really sure. I know that when I think it was slapdashing, I think Leffen started talking about it several years ago, and Armada was like, "That's not going to do anything." That probably didn't help.
It's huge now. Yeah.
But yeah.
I think a big part of the reason why we have to like surpass Armada is because we don't know what Armada would do to deal with the current options that people do.
Right.
Like something that literally every Fox does these days is shine out a shield against Peach's float cancel aerials if they're bad.
Yeah.
And we don't know what Armada would have done because we just never saw it happen.
Yeah, I remember there was a friendly or something probably at a summit where I was playing Armada and I shined his fair out of shield, and I wave shined him and up smashed him. And he said he like sighed deeply and he was like, "You're doing that now too?" And I was like, "Sorry, Armada."
Yeah.
he was like, I think he had this thought that was like, okay, if even the commentators are doing this, like my life is gonna be really difficult.
Right.
And I remember even towards the end, I remember there was a set where Armada had to try, for some reason, he tried to go Peach against Leffen, and Leffen ended the set with a wave shine out of shield and up smash.
Yeah. I think that was like a smash and splash or something. I think I know what you're talking about.
So that's a good example. I don't know. How do you deal with it? I guess you just space around it.
Yeah.
Small,
Or
right?
If you are really positive on shield, like if your aerial is good enough,
the upper thing.
Yeah. So like up air is good against it. If you do specific nerves that are positive enough, then you can deal with it.
Because like you
It's-
can't even get off the ground to do the shine as the fox, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like you
That's pretty
can
cool.
catch them mid jump squat. Yeah, it's tough because a lot of the time, like her aerials, you're trying to swat fox jumping, or like you're trying to do like a forward that covers part of the air space. And if you cover that, but it ends up hitting their shield, it's not that great on shield just because you hit high and they don't have as much shield stun before you can act. And so like those high forward airs will lose to the Shenanigans shield. And so you have to pick your battle. It isn't like every flow cancel forward air is just +4 on shield. There's like these tiny distinctions and tiny reasons to do different things, and you just have to be ready for it and space your forward air as well, or just pick better options.
Well, speaking of picking your battles, there's really a question that I have to ask you today that I've talked to some other people about, and I think it comes back to you. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one I've got to hear about this. This Yoshi is a better Peach thing.
Yes.
I'll tell you right now, I'll be straight up, I'm not on board. I'd be surprised if by the end of this conversation I'm on board, but I want to hear about it. Did you come up with it? And if so, what's going on, man?
Yeah, so I do think that like within Melee, there's kind of like evolutions of characters. Like I think that Sheik and Falcon are like in the same evolution branch. I think that like Peach is a better version of Ganondorf, and that Yoshi is the final evolution. I think they all kind of have that like I want to come down on you with like a huge hitbox from like out of nowhere. I want to just from out of nowhere just come down on you with this gigantic hitbox and make you cower in fear. And they also Peach and Yoshi are extremely counter hit and trade heavy.
Yes.
And like I wish that I could, parry. Like anytime you see me power shield as Peach, imagine if that's a Yoshi parry. Anytime you see me crouch cancel, imagine that's a Yoshi parry or crouch cancel. I think and anytime you hit Peach in the air and she counter hits you, imagine if Yoshi literally does an aerial crouch cancel, the double jump cancel armor, or the double jump armor. Like I think so much of what Peach represents, Yoshi just does it better. Like his kit is literally defined by counter hits and outplaying the opponent. Like we talked about earlier, how I very much want that like counterplay heavy style with Peach. Yoshi is literally built for that, and I think it's a lot harder to navigate the character, but he can actually contest the stage a lot better than Peach can, and force like the counterplay mix-ups to happen and he can force those mix-up while approaching, if that makes sense. Because Peach kind of has to like wait for the opponent to come to you, but Yoshi can literally position himself right next to you and then begin a counter hit sequence. So I think like concept-wise, they are very similar. Yoshi just does it better. So I think as time goes on, Peach gets worse, but Yoshi gets better.
Man, I wish this was a different kind of podcast so I could really have it out with you about this. Because boy, do I want to. But so where do I even go from here? I mean, so you're saying, Toph, do you have a thing you want to add on to this? I'm trying to think where I want to go.
I think I broke you.
Yeah. Interesting. I think that there are things. I've played a lot of Yoshi, not as.
Oh,
Yoshi,
I remember my
against
question.
A lot of Yoshi. Okay.
I was just gonna say,
I kind of see it, but I think my thing is that. How do I word this? I think Yoshi is better than both Peach and Ganon at certain things, like the mobility, for example. I think that Yoshi can come in and do those big moves from angles that the others can't. And Yoshi has things that you really have to respect, for sure. But at the same time, I also don't think Yoshi is as good at doing the big moves as Peach is. So I almost feel like Ganon. I feel like it's more like you have Ganon. If anything, it's more like instead of it being a linear evolution from 1 to 2 to 3, like Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, I feel like it's more like Ganon is the little baby, and if you give Ganon the Peach Stone, Princess Stone, it turns into Peach, and if you give him the Dinosaur Stone,
I can see
it turns into Yoshi.
The other thing I'm thinking of...
That's me meeting you in the middle, by the way, and I strongly disagree that Yoshi is better.
Okay, you ever see like Pokemon Stadium, where you can like select your team? The game, yeah. Oh yeah, sorry.
I knew you meant the game.
The game where like the baby Pokemon have moves like Fire Blast and Explosion, And then
Yeah,
the final
and then the
evolutions
adults have like
Ember,
confusion,
or like
yeah,
Flame
water
Wheel
gun.
or whatever. Yeah, like that kind of
Yep.
stuff. That's what it kind of feels like. Where like Yoshi is the final evolution who has the best stats but the worst moves.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could get behind that. I could get behind
And
that.
like
That
you
wouldn't
know,
necessarily make him better then, right? That would just
so not
be it would just be
necessarily.
different.
It'd be different, but I think like if you know you have the tools to reach. Sorry if you can see my cat. You have
Hello,
the
cat.
tools to completely like outplay your opponent. Like the skill ceiling is much higher with Yoshi. You have the tools available. It's just a lot harder. Because with Peach, like you have these things like dash attack and down smash, which they're very good, but it's hard to outplay the opponent with them. But when it comes to things like parries, double jump cancels, super armor, you very much have the tools necessary to just outplay your opponent. It's just a lot harder, and you don't get as much off of it, but you can do a lot more. Like you win a lot more neutral interactions, which is why I think like as time goes on, as things like dash attack and down smash get worse, and as we rely more on those tiny neutral wins, I think Yoshi will end up surpassing Peach.
Man, God, boy, do I want to. I feel like this could be its own podcast episode. This is such
Yeah.
it's an interesting topic, and it's one I want to talk a lot about. But again, I'll just leave with this. If you feel that way and you feel the skills transfer well enough, why not become a Yoshi main?
Sounds
Oh,
like
I
you should.
want
Sounds like
to,
you should
yeah.
get LOD on your stream. By the way, PP.
Oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I really
You
want
guys,
to
you
talk
should
about
definitely do a follow up at some point. But yeah,
Yeah.
If I could transfer all my Peach skill to a different character, it'd be Yoshi easily, and I'd just be the best player in the
Wow.
world. Yeah, like if I mained
Wait, not
Yoshi,
like
I would.
you wouldn't go like Fox or
No.
something.
Oh
You would go
no.
Yoshi.
No, because
it
but,
doesn't
like,
translate as
Yoshi
well, right?
doesn't translate. Yoshi represents how I want to play this game, and I would just be the best player.
Do you think if your results this is a funny question. It's like Armada gets challenged by like Puff, Fox, Martin. He's like, I gotta go Fox. Do you think like if your results get challenged more, do you think, oh man, it might have to, take out the Yosh? What are you thinking?
If I had infinite time, for sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
But between the music and surgery, you're just like, I'm just gonna have to stick out Peach no matter what.
Probably. Because Yoshi, like I said, I think
Big
Yoshi's
commitment.
the hardest character in the game, like by far. I wish I could master Yoshi in a day. If I could, I would, and just main Yoshi and call it a day. I just don't think I have the time to make the switch. So, you could argue, like, am I investing in my long-term success by not spending every second I can playing Yoshi? Probably. But my mind might change based on how far I can push Peach. Also, since a lot of things that I've been doing in the past few months are very
Or in
different
the
from
past
anything we've
weekend.
seen. Or in the past weekend, yeah, exactly. Because honestly, I'm more excited to play now than I have been in a while, since I have a new tool, and I love when I have a new tool to play around with, because there's so much you can do with it. And so maybe after this year, I will change my mind that Yoshi is better, that Peach is better than Yoshi. So it's tough.
I have
but
a bold and daring hot take for you that Peach is better than Yoshi, and I think that if it's any assurance, I think that your effort going into Peach is going to pay off more than putting time into Yoshi. But I understand that that's a challenging thing to say.
yeah,
You're a real
admit,
heretic, Toph. You're a real heretic. You know that?
Yeah, right. So
I think that Yoshi. So if you only play on Yoshi's story and Battlefield, I think Yoshi's the best character in the game.
Huh? Yeah. Okay.
What?
Yoshi is
And-
quite good on those stages. I will say.
Hell, this guy,
I think
this guy's
main
Yoshi
thing
killed.
holding Yoshi back is the bad stages, right? FD, Stadium, kind of Fountain, kind of Dreamland, yeah. And so
Best character in the
ideally,
game,
I dual main, only playing Yoshi on Battlefield and Yoshi's, and playing Peach everywhere else. That's my. If I'm still playing this game in 20 years, that's what I'll be
That's your
doing.
new
I now need 2 podcasts to go over all this with LOD.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm losing my marbles over here. These are very interesting things, but they would take a lot of time to tease out the specifics.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not a Yoshi expert by any means, so I could be totally off. But just based on how I want this game to be played, how I want Yoshi to be played, and what I think you can do with that kind of style, I think Yoshi is super underrated.
Man.
Last question from me, LOD. Before we cut this one off, who's the better Yoshi, you or your brother?
Oh, me by far. And he'll admit
Is it?
that.
Okay.
I only have 2 characters that are better than Rishi's, and that is Peach, and
Obviously,
Yoshi.
your main. Okay.
Yeah, and like
and
maybe
your second main.
maybe Sheik, just because I mained Sheik for like 10 years, and he admits that Sheik is one of his worst characters. Yeah, everyone else, every other character he thinks his is better than mine. But yeah, I definitely claim Yoshi and Peach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fair enough. Oh man, boy, what a topic. We've got to transition away from here. So I'm just gonna hard cut into community voice. lloD, let's give a question for the YouTube comments to respond to. What is something that only you could ask them? What is something that you really want answered here in the YouTube comment section of this video?
So I want to know if two Melee players did the Dragon Ball Z fusion dance to create the ultimate Smasher. Who would those two players be, and what would their fusion name be?
Amsa and lloD.
Lamsa.
Lamsa.
So immediate. I love that.
Llama.
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 Nice.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a great question. This is something that gets talked about a lot within the context of one character.
Yeah.
Like, Wizzy's tech chasing with, nuns, whatever, craziness. But
yeah,
I think it's if anything, under discussed across characters. And that's
think if you could make a Fox Marth dual main, I think that's going to be crazy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good question, lloD. Thank you for that one. I'm going to spend some time thinking about it myself.
lloD spent time thinking about it too. We were talking about it beforehand, how he combining names. Give me an example of one of the team names or something you came up with.
Hungry Slocks.
That was the one.
And then also Plot Fiction is another favorite.
Plot Fiction's great.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
Plot Fiction is that's a classic. People love what
I love that one. Yeah,
and they make the jokes in the YouTube comments every time, and it never gets old. Yep.
Yeah. So awesome. It's been wonderful. The discussion's been awesome. A lot of great insight. A lot of hot takes. I'll say it. But hey, I mean, a lot of great wisdom and great things revealed here. So I think it's been awesome to have you on, lloD. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for holding it down as always, Toph. And thank you people out there for calling in, for watching, for listening. Radio Melee is going to be on a bit of a hiatus. We will be back end of June, but stick around, watch the VODs, get your community voice answers in, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching. This is Radio Melee, signing out.
Signing out.